Hello everybody and welcome to day 6, the penultimate day of this Christmas special, and today we're possibly going to be looking at one of the most unique and deadly frost weapons in the entire game. And of course we're trying to aim for 150 likes across all of the videos that I've released so far, so let's see if we can hit that like goal in 24 hours time. Anyway, there's enough dilly-dallying, let me show you this insane weapon and the build that goes around it. So today we are going to be looking at the Death's Poker. And fun fact about this weapon, it took me almost 2 years to realise that this was even a thing in the game, as it only first featured on this channel about 2 months ago when we were discussing magic builds. But where this weapon predominantly uses the Ash of War, which uses Ghost Flame abilities, and the fact that Ghost Flame also has a Frost proc, it of course fits perfectly within this mini-series, and so I simply couldn't leave it out. In fact, this whole series would be a shambles if I didn't mention it. Of course, for those of you that don't know how to obtain this weapon, you do need to head to the sort of southeast of Caelid, where if you come to this particular location at night time, there will be a Deathrite bird roaming at this sort of edge of the cliff who will be wielding the Death's Poker. Upon defeating this particular Deathrite bird, you will then get the Death Poker for yourself, and then essentially have a weapon that is considered one of the most powerful weapons in the entire game. And just to give you a bit of a heads up as well, I know I said you can get this fairly easy because all you need to do is head to Caelid, kill this Deathrite bird, and then you'll have the Death's Poker in your hand. The Deathrite bird is a little bit challenging with it being in Caelid, so unless you want to use the cheese method at the edge of the cliff to make him drop down, I do advise leveling at least a little bit to obviously be well equipped to come and defeat this particular Deathrite bird. But the reason why this weapon is so good, and I heavily suggest you getting this thing, is because the weapon's Ash of War, the Ghost Flame Ignition, scales dramatically with intelligence and has 2 different attacks. So when you press the button for your Ash of War, you will cast a Ghost Flame Fireball in front of you, and then if you follow up with a quick attack, you will then leave a trail of Ghost Flame heading in whichever direction you're facing. But if you want a more crowd controlling attack, say you're getting surrounded by multiple enemies, if you then follow up with a heavy attack instead of the light attack, you will then do a Ghost Flame Explosion for a more effective AoE, damaging anybody in the near vicinity. However, the reason why this weapon is so good is mainly for that light attack that you can do after casting the fireball. That's because it can be triggered multiple times, and the fireball, whilst you're using the Ash of War, also does damage itself, just dealing consistent damage over time with a high amount of damage if they get caught in the explosion as well when you hit the fireball, meaning that you have a potential to do upwards of 5,000 damage with just one use of that attack. And where you can consistently chain it and put it in different directions, you can ultimately lock onto your enemies, stun them, hit them with the frost damage, deal extra damage with the Ash of War, and where it's a great sword, you can just follow up with a large amount of heavy attacks, causing all sorts of nightmares for any enemy that decides to attack you. This weapon is ultimately my go-to weapon if I just need to clear a certain area, or if I'm making videos for you guys and I want to get to a certain boss and I need to jump into like a new game plus if I've killed them already and quickly get to whichever boss I'm showcasing, as this thing will just, like I say, obliterate anything that's on your screen. The fact that we also delve so much into intelligence, where the Ash of War also scales with intelligence, allows us to also potentially use other spells, giving us all sorts of different variations to keep the build fresh and not just be a constant Ash of War spamming build. Although, I can't lie, that is pretty much what you'll be doing, because the numbers of the damage with this thing is just outright ridiculous. I could honestly praise this weapon all day long, but obviously to save you guys' time and to keep this video short and snappy for you, here are the stats that I was using at the time of this particular gameplay. You know the drill, as per normal, we've got 45 Vigor, 20 Mind, 24 Endurance, but then we've got 15 Strength as that's needed to wield the Death's Poker, along with 40 points in Dexterity, 65 points in Intelligence, and then 10 in Faith and Arcane. So essentially, we're not putting anything in Faith and Arcane and pumping most of it into Dexterity and especially Intelligence. Again, as I said earlier, Intelligence is going to be your best friend, as that's going to be the highest scaling stat for this particular weapon, especially the Ash of War that we're going to be utilizing. So I would actually recommend trying to pump that up to 80. The only reason why I had so much Dexterity was to increase the spell casting time with the spells that I was using at the same time, and of course dexterity also boosts the base damage that you do with the weapon itself. So if you are going to utilize the heavy attacks and also other spells along with the Death Poker's Ash of War, then I highly suggest keeping a relatively okay amount in dexterity. But if you're just here for pure damage output and destruction, then I would highly suggest pumping at least 80 points into intelligence. That way you will hit the scaling cap for intelligence with the weapon, and then whatever left over I would say pump that into either strength or dexterity to again boost the damage output as much as physically possible. But either way, for this particular build I would highly recommend using these particular talismans. So first of all, Shard of Alexander is almost a given, where the Ash of War is going to be the star of the show. Anything that can boost the damage further is something that we definitely want to do, and the Shard of Alexander is going to do exactly that. The other thing that will boost the damage output, because it's magic and intelligence based, is going to be the Magic Scorpion Charm. This will also help out with any other spells that you're using alongside the weapon. I would also highly recommend using the Ritual Swords Talisman, because where we're going to try and keep our distance as much as possible, you're most likely not going to get hit. And then just lastly, if you want to utilize the weapon or just keep your defense as high as physically possible, I would also recommend using the Dragon Great Shield, as that will highly boost your defense. And then just to finish everything off with this particular build, of course with the Wonder Physick, I would highly recommend, especially if you've only got 65 points in intelligence like I do, using the Intelligence Knot, whilst also mixing that with the Magic Shroud in Crack Tier, again just to get the highest amount of damage that you can for this particular weapon. But if you've got 80 intelligence already, I would maybe suggest using something like the Cerulean Flask just to avoid using as much FP, or potentially something like the Stone Barb Crack Tier that will help you break your enemy stances, allowing for a few critical hits as well. Either way, even without all of the boost that we're getting, this weapon is literally insane, as you can deal massive amounts of damage without really going too close to your enemies, and just essentially turn Elden Ring into one of the easiest games known to man. This thing was just amazing when I first picked it up, and is still amazing to use even to this day. I know it's not making the game as much of a challenge, and it's just there to breeze through it and maybe see how quick you can get through the game with this particular weapon. But if say you've got like an hour or two to kill and you just want to go around obliterating everything in your path, then this is definitely the build to use. But yeah, realistically I don't have anything else to say about this weapon other than go get it and use it for yourself, because trust me, you're not going to want to put it down once you've used it. But yeah, obviously today was the second to last episode of this mini series that we're doing. I really do hope that you guys have enjoyed this. I know Elden Ring is a little bit dead at the moment. I'm trying to bring the hype back a little bit and maybe give you guys a different way to play the game, but I'll be honest, I'm sure you're all like me and have done everything you can, probably used every weapon available, and we're just now simply waiting for that DLC to hopefully drop early next year. But obviously you never know, maybe the DLC is a myth and it's just a marketing ploy to keep us playing Elden Ring for all eternity. But hopefully we do definitely get it. And obviously with everything said in this particular video and how good the Death Poker is, tomorrow we've got one last video going over the best frost weapon, in my opinion at least, that you can use in all of Elden Ring. Obviously again, whilst you're in the comments telling me about the DLC, also let me know what you think tomorrow's video is going to be around. Will you get it right? I guess you'll have to stick around and find out by checking into the channel and watching tomorrow's video, so definitely make sure that you stay tuned for that. So I just want to say a big thank you for watching this video, and especially if you've watched all of the videos so far, I really do appreciate your support, guys. But for now, I'm gonna love you and leave you, so thank you again so much for watching, and I'll catch you tomorrow for the final episode of this series. Bye bye.